Ben and I, how many years have we been doing this?
I was thinking about that earlier today. This has to be like our 8th or 9th, some year that we've taught together. What do you think?
So we wrote Social in what year?
That's what I was trying to think. I couldn't think.
2009. So
I'm not super good at math. 9 years?
I think this is 9 years because the next year we started the tradition of
10.
10 years.
The boss said 10.
If you'd ask him 3%, he would know. So there we go.
That's true. I'm really good at that math.
But yeah, so we've been doing this, I guess, for a decade. And we've done some fun classes. We started off teaching social, and then we taught the one thing. And then we taught our giving class several years in a row. And we're switching it up. And we came up with some, 19 strategies. That's a lot. You don't get to pick 19. The one thing still applies, but hopefully you'll get 1, maybe 2 strategies that you can walk out of family reunion and start applying to your business, to your health, to your personal life, some of the areas that we wanted to outline to help people out.
Couldn't have said it better.
All right, you've got the clicker. Do you want me to drive? Yeah, I figured as much. He doesn't like those kind of responsibilities, right? Here we go.
I don't like any responsibilities.
All right, so we're going to talk about wealth, health, business, and self. You see how that rhymes? We're pretty proud of ourselves for that. So, Ben, how do you define wealth?
I've said it a couple times over the last week, but wealth is one of the most important things to me. I'm no longer caring about GCI or units or volume or teams or number of locations. I want to know, what am I doing for myself and my people to build real wealth? We talk about it, we're teaching it, because wealth gives us the ability to do what we want, with who we want, when we want. And I love this industry and I love what I do every day. I just want to have the choice whether I do or I don't. And I think that's the true definition for wealth for us, is giving us the freedom of choice.
I love that. That works for me too. I think that Wendy and I started our wealth building journey. It was really about freedom. I remember we referred to it, if you were in our KWYP session, in the very beginning, I said, let's build our Go to Heck fund. And basically, I didn't know Gary that well then, but I didn't ever want to have to go to work for a person or a company that I didn't personally believe in, just because I had a mortgage payment or a tuition fee or a car payment. And the idea of never ever being hostage to a job was really appealing to both of us.
You know, I think even know a little bit about my childhood, but I left home at 18 or 17 after a really bad altercation with a stepfather, and it was bad. And I left, and 2 weeks later, my mom left, and she should have left him 10 years ago. But what she said, I couldn't afford to take care of you if I left. And you see the kind of decisions that not having money can do, that she put herself through all those years of abuse and alcoholism and all that kind of stuff, because she couldn't afford to leave that situation. And there's all those situations, whether it's I'm not allowed to say shitty, a bad job or a bad relationship or whatever it is. This gives us that choice.
Right? Choice is what we want. Absolutely. You want more choices. Even if you don't have to make them, you want the ability to make the choices that you want. So, wealth, passive income. Number 1, live on less than you earn. And it seems so rudimentary, folks, but I can't tell you, especially in a sales industry, how many people think they can revenue their way out of an expense management problem. It's not about going and listing 3 more houses or selling X number of houses. It's about what you do with the money you already have. If you want to earn a profit from your business, it's not about the revenue, it's about the expenses. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And so on a personal level, you have to start getting into a place, whether you need accountability or not, to start living within that budget. And in real estate, I love it when I see teams starting off and you pay yourself a salary. As soon as you can say, I have a salary, and start living within it, then you got to start to see the business income that comes after that. And that salary can set a lifestyle for you, and you try to live within that, and what happens above it, that's the stuff that you get to invest. That's the stuff you get to do. But until you learn to live within a lifestyle, you will always be chasing it. We talked about this on stage with Gary. When you're behind it, When your lifestyle is driving your business decisions, that's a really negative cycle to get into.
The other thing that paying yourself a salary does is it puts that leadership position on your budget. So when your profit is large enough to step out of the business doesn't take a hit because you've already been paying yourself a fair salary for that position. Does that make sense? So you think on live on less, we got the business problem, which is we want to make sure that in a business way that we're making a profit. And then we have the personal. How are we living below our means? In business, they say that, what is the analogy? All things rise when the tide rises?
All boats float with the rising tide.
Yeah, that was way better than I said. But when the tide goes out, you see who's not wearing a swimsuit. You know what I mean? Because when the market shifts, and the market could shift that fast, that tide goes out, people are left naked. And when you run a business and you expand a business that's not profitable and you always put every dollar into it and you never take a dollar off the table, one day something can happen. And that day was August 15th, 2008. And then it happened again September 15th, 2008, because I went from having $500,000 in GCI coming in to zero in 30 days. And what I realized at that point was I was basing my budget on my pendings, not on my closed. Right? I think you guys said it better in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. You said something along the lines of people base their lifestyles based on their best year.
Right. When you say, what's your production, everybody always tells you what their best year was. I'm a $50 million agent. It's probably more accurate to look at the average of your last 5 years. And that would account for any ups and downs in the market, and that would probably be a much better thing to be building your baseline budget around than your best possible year.
That's why I tell everybody I weigh 180. So if I could just add on your personal expenses, here's a formula that I learned. Take whatever it costs you to live, your basic food budget, your insurance, your car, your house, right? The basics right there. I try to make that 50% of whatever I pay myself in a salary, 50%. Now the remaining half, I divide it in half. 25% is what I have to have fun on, go out, do whatever, buy stuff, right, get some more camo, another North Face vest. And the other 25% is what I have left over to pay off debt, invest, or save. And then in addition, whatever's left over in your business as profit, you can then go do all those invested in other things. But try to live on 75% of your salary.
So one last tip on this, because if this is the first domino, everything else depends on it. If you can't learn to do this, the other 4 points we have around wealth building don't really matter. I hate budgeting. The whole idea of tracking my expenses just makes me want to shoot myself. It's just a horrible idea. The simple way we described it in The Millionaire Real Estate Investor is once you establish that I'm going to live on 75% of this is what I'm going to live on, you need to have 3 bank accounts. You have your checking account, you have your savings account, and then you have this other account. We call it our investment account. And this is how business works too. You have your budget in the checking. You are moving some money into savings, and everything on top of that goes into the investment account. And here's the thing, it doesn't mean like you can't get it out. If you have a bad month, you can move money the other direction, but now you're at least conscious of it. If all of your money is in the same bucket, what happens to that? Right? You only want to have your budget living there because then you immediately get a signal that says you've overdrafted. You actually just went over your budget. You have a feedback loop, otherwise you're never aware.
You also become really vulnerable if it's a business budget. One of the rules we adopted is we keep 4 months reserves on our operating account, and everything else we either put it in a savings or I take it out of the business. That means since my employees have no access to my savings account, I'm the only one that can transfer money back into my checking. The most amount they could ever steal from me is 4 months. And I would notice it, right? So it reduces the risk of theft and embezzlement and everything else by always just taking that money off the table every month, whatever 4 months is, take everything that's left, put it in another account, separate it, nobody else gets access to it.
There you go. Invest in real estate. It would seem like a no-brainer, folks, I love what Gary said. We get the first eyes on everything that's coming available in the market. We're making our clients wealthy. We're helping them build forced savings through their homes. Are you also looking up and saying, I'm going to be an investor? I'm going to invest in real estate. When did you first start? Is everybody okay? All right. If we need something, raise your hand. When did you first start investing in real estate?
When I was a cable guy.
Okay, so before you even got into real estate.
The only reason I'm in real estate is because the Keller Williams agent that helped me buy my very first duplex gave me Gary Keller's and Jay's book, The Billionaire Real Estate Agent, as my closing gift. But I did it because this lady said, yeah, I just bought this duplex. And I said, what's a duplex? And I said, it looks like a condo. She was like, no, it's a duplex. What's the difference? She said, oh, I own both sides. I said, well, why would you just not buy a house? She said, the neighbor's rent covers 100% of my mortgage. I thought that was the greatest thing I ever heard. I'm like, you live for free? Free? And I wanted to get that free thing, so I went off and I bought a duplex so that I could live for free.
There you go. More money for pizza and hunting, right?
That's right. Cheeseburgers, to be honest. Yeah.
So just starting walking down that road, now I will say, like he just talked about, if I could go back in time, we would have bought a duplex too. We had already bought our first house. We didn't buy it like an investment when we realized that that was an opportunity. But that is an amazing opportunity for people to step into home ownership and have a stream of income attached to it. And guess what? When you go to buy that income stream, the lease on the other half, is qualifying income for the total value of the property. So you can actually get more real estate because you actually have another $12,000 or $15,000 in income to put on top. So it's a great formula. Invest in real estate for yourself, make it a priority, and you're a real estate agent. You can negotiate the contract. I don't know, is there a limit to how much you can charge in commission if you wanted to not bring as much cash into the deal?
No, my second duplex I ever bought, I didn't have enough money for the down payment, so I charged 12%. And I increased the price, it appraised for it, I charged 12%, took that 12% and used it as my down payment, because I didn't have any down payment, right?
It's not about how much cash you have. If you find a deal, you can either use creative ways, or you can find other investors who will go in. You can start investing in real estate and building your wealth tomorrow.
That might not have been legal, I don't know, but it worked.
I know Gene Rivers the reason I ask is Gene Rivers, who I think is like straight as an arrow, right? He was talking about doing flips the exact same way. There's usually a limit set by your state board on what you can charge. There may be. You need to check that out and make sure you're within that. But it's what you negotiate. And as long as it appraises, you're good.
Yeah, that's a real question. Does it appraise? You know, the thing about real estate, Jay and Gary shared yesterday on stage, the renter has a net worth of $5,000 and the homeowner has a net worth of $238,000. Those are the two numbers that, by the way, it's not just about wealth, it's about being a real estate agent. Every time you meet a renter or a friend or an employee that doesn't own real estate, you should be saying, hey, by the way, did you know that the average net worth of a renter in the United States is $5,200, while the average net worth of a homeowner is $238,000? Which one of those people do you think would be in a better situation to take care of themselves in the event of a medical emergency, cancer, if they wanted to retire, if they wanted to invest in something? Everybody should own real estate because that builds wealth for the majority of Americans. Now, what's important about that is that real estate is, especially owner-occupied real estate, is easy to get into. It's affordable. It doesn't take a lot of money down, right? And what would a stock market, if we're going in the stock market, Jay, what would it go up in value?
I think a lot of people, depending on who you talk to and what they're selling, they're going to tell you historically the stock market is going to yield between 8 and 12%.
Okay, so let's say 10 because I'm easier at that math. If you put $10,000 into your 401k and it went up by 10%, how much would you make that year? Well, $1,000. If you took that same $10,000 and you put it down on a $300,000 property and that property appreciated at the average of 4% over the last 30 years, you would get 4% not on your down payment, but on the purchase value, which means you would make how much?
12.
12,000. Which one's bigger, 1,000 or 12,000?
It's leverage. It's an amazing thing, right? And the idea of owner-occupied, because we got into it backwards, our first house became our first rental property. So guess what? We got our first rental property with homeowner financing. It was like 3% down, right? And you can do that every 2 years. Use homeowner financing, move into it. Instead of making it your palace, think of it, this is my next investment property, and I'm going to start making improvements to it so that I can rent it out in 2 years. If you don't have kids and you have the ability to still do that, you can start laddering up and building investment properties and income behind you.
I built out a spreadsheet. You guys can download it. I'll get it to you. On what would real estate look like if I bought 10 properties over the next 20 years, and I started out at an average price of $300,000, and they went up at 4% every year, and I put my down payment that was required, but I moved from house to house to house to house, and I kept all those, and then I rented them out, and I got the average rent, and I did all the math. At the end of 30 years, remember the most recent property you would have bought was 10 years ago, so you'd still have mortgage on a lot of them, but at the end of 30 years, you'd have something like $8 million in net worth. So you want to talk to an employer or somebody in your life about helping them have the best retirement and the best life possible. They can literally do that by putting 3% down on a property, 3.5 FHA, that kind of thing, every 2 years, 10 times. If that's a big stretch for them, have them do it 5 times. It's still like $4 million. It's a massive amount, right? Massive.
So we want people to first save some money, live on less they earn, take some of that, invest it in real estate. It's an amazing place. It's the industry we're in, right? So you have more expertise in that investment vehicle than anything else and the greatest network on earth for that. Why would we then tell them, number 3, to get other retirement vehicles?
Well, what we would like to do is minimize the amount of money that we give to the IRS, unless they're listening right now. In that case, we'd like to maximize the amount of money we give to the IRS. What that means is you need to understand what are the financial limits in contributions to a retirement type account that could minimize your income. Because if you don't do it, you end up paying taxes on that income, right? And a lot of you might be in that 30-40% tax bracket, which means if you put $10 into your retirement account, it's like you're only putting 6. It's 40% free money. Here's what we learned about money, and what I've learned about money. Unless you have good friends like Jay and Wendy, that we talk about money and we have uncomfortable conversations about money and net worth and debt and those sort of decisions, is that nobody else is going to come to save you. There's nobody that's going to come out there and say, let me really help you with your financial net worth, right? Unless you find friends or partners to do that, which means it's your responsibility. I hope I don't get pooped on again.
Oh, yeah.
It is your responsibility to understand and research what those things are. That's yours. That's why I got 50 books in my bookcase about.
I know, those pigeons are making me nervous too.
About money. So right now, for an employee in a 401k, they can put about $18,500 into their 401k. But if you're self-employed, you can put about $55,000 into a self-employed 401k. But if that doesn't work, you can do what's called a defined benefits plan and put up to $255,000 into a retirement account and still defer that income through your business. Each state, all these areas are different, but it's up to you to research that and see, do you qualify? What do you qualify for? And financially, what would that mean to you? What's important is you don't hear those numbers and say, hey, this is scary, I'm not going to do anything. Because putting $1,000 this year is better than nothing. And it came to me when I got to hear Warren Buffett speak at his annual convention, and he said, if I put $10,000 when I was 18 into an account, a retirement account, and I simply put it into a fund that invested in the S&P 500. Those are 500 different companies, a mutual fund, and I never once sold it. I just kept that $10,000 in there, right? And I waited till today. It was worth $52 million. I mean, he's older than shit, but but what that means is small amount invested over a long period of time compounds massively into a number. And what I thought, Jay, is if we put $10,000 into an account for Gus, and we said, Gus, you cannot touch this for the next 50 years, what would that do to his life and his retirement, right? If we just made an agreement, we signed a document, we just put that money in there, right? He would wake up and his retirement potentially could be set for the rest of his life.
But we wouldn't tell him that because we want him to work hard. But yes.
You're right. It'd be the secret account.
In a personal business, Wendy, how old does a child have to be to work in your business and you pay them? Is it like 8 years old? As an 8-year-old, right, the next time you're going to be mailing your farm, you can get your kids to come in, pay them legally, and then what can they do with that money? They can put it in an IRA. So as early as 8, you could start this process and let compound interest, right, grow over time. Because time is the real magic here. Anything that grows at a rate, you get that hockey stick. And it gets to be that 52 million or whatever that crazy number is, it'll always surprise you. So time is your friend.
What Jay just shared, a lot of people don't understand and they don't know that you can actually pay your children up to a certain amount. I think it's $4,000 or some amount of dollars like that. You could put it into an IRA. You could also put it into the 529 program for paying for college, but you get to take that salary you paid them and write it off as a business expense, but they don't have to claim it as income. It is a powerful tool for especially for a lot of you guys that breed often. It could be a big write-off. It could be a big write-off for your business.
There you go. So build your business as an asset. One of the big habits that Gary used to build his wealth, that Wendy and I used to build our wealth, is we started tracking our net worth. And tracking your net worth is simply adding up, what do I own, subtract everything that you owe as in debt, and whatever's left is your net worth. And don't judge the number. The first time we did it, it was about $2,000. The average in American, it might be a negative number. It's okay, wherever you start, that's where you start. But by tracking it, you become aware of the assets that you have that go up in value, the assets that you have that give you cash. And I'll tell you, the number one asset that people always forget to add to that is the business that you're building right here today. Your real estate business is an asset. And if you treat it like an asset, you can grow it to be a business worth owning that someday might actually yield you something if you had to sell it, or better yet, put it in someone else's hand and let it send you cash.
You know, you look at the financial instruments and they go up 8 or 10%, and the number you shared with us about real estate appreciation, 4% over 30 years or a little bit higher than that, those are kind of smaller numbers. But let's look at the growth of Wendy's business compounded over the last couple of years. It could go up 20%, 40%, 80%, or 100%. You cannot get a better return than building a good business fast. And when you look at my net worth as tracked over time, the bulk of it is transferred from being in cash and in real estate assets to actually being the value of our businesses. Do you pick a multiplier or a number when you put your businesses on the balance sheet?
What Gary taught me, and you can tell me your opinion, I just went with the billionaire I know. No offense, but he just says, I like it, just any chance. 1 year's cash flow. And so all of our businesses are valued at last year's cash flow. And the reason we do that is if you're tracking this and people know you're tracking it, we stand on big stages and say, we track it. If someone ever sues you, guess what? Your net worth tracking is now discoverable in court. And if you wanted to make yourself an artificial millionaire and say your business was worth $1 million, guess what the lawyer is going to go for? Right. I'd much rather say, hey, we netted $85 last year. So just be honest. Let it be what it is. What I don't care is, like, the numbers and goals are great. I want to see the trend line going up. And I want it to go up as fast as we can make it go up, because at a certain level, you now are financially free, you are financially independent, and all of your choices are your own, which is the whole point here.
Now I can't disagree.
Now you can disagree. And there's a lot of people. Right now, we know that a lot of real estate businesses are selling for multiples 3 to 5, what?
Yeah, I'd say brokerages, you see them selling between that 3 and 5 times net income, and the 5 traditionally happens because they're getting paid over time, so there's terms. So 3 or less might be a cash value, right? I put my brokerages on our net worth tracking at 3 times net income because there's so many comparables of what that could sell for, but I wouldn't put my expansion business on there because nobody's proven that that's a sellable asset, nor do I ever want to. That is just a cash flow tool for us.
There you go. And you're just tracking it so you can see the progress over time. You figure out what you think is an honest number. So if it went to an objective person, they'd say, yeah, that's a fair number. And that's how you're tracking your progress. So is anybody here feeling just like a little bit overwhelmed around all this money talk? Okay, it just starts with that first one. Focus there. And he said something else. How many books do you have about financial wealth building, you think?
Over 50.
Over 50. Did you read those all last year?
Last 2 years.
Okay, well, that's not the point I was going to make. That's extraordinary.
Well, I have a friend that's a billionaire.
There you go. I knew that I had to read a bunch the year that we wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, but in general, I just try to read 2 or 3 new books on finances a year. That's something that I can tackle. And so you don't have to become an expert all at once. Just build a habit of, instead of us always picking up a novel, at least once or twice a year say, you know what, I'm going to read a book or I'm going to listen to an audiobook that's going to make me feel more confident and knowledgeable about this thing that brings a little anxiety to me today. And over time, that'll pay off. So my mom and dad are on the front row. Hi, it's so cool having you here. And I'm an English-French major, right? I'm gonna, the guy, if there was a Facebook back then, you would find long hair, John Lennon glasses, that whole thing when I was living abroad, right? Kind of the hippie thing. But I can remember asking my dad, he's always been an executive about business, and he gave me really simple advice. If you want to understand business, just read the business page every day. This is back, he got the paper newspaper. And he goes, it won't make any sense until it starts making sense. And so I just started reading the business, and I would reward myself with a crossword puzzle because I'm a word nerd. But if I read the business section, I would usually read the sports section because I like sports. I would ignore the front page because it's all depressing. But over a few years, all of a sudden, it starts to make sense. I still don't really understand like options and some of the stock stuff, but in general, you get an idea. So find something that's digestible. There's a podcast. There is a great newsletter called The Morning Brew, and it's really short. The Morning Brew, like your coffee, it's like 500 words, and it's funny. It makes me laugh out loud. Just start reading that every day and take baby steps, and I promise you'll look up someday and someone will say, what's dollar cost averaging? You'll say, oh, that's when you invest regularly in the stock market over time. You'll suddenly surprise yourself with some knowledge that you didn't know you have. So start small. It starts with living within your budget and invest in your education before you start investing your money.
Early in the career, it was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and The Millionaire Real Estate Investor has a great 140 pages. It starts off with is really about money, not about real estate. Cash flow quadrants, that sort of stuff. But a couple years ago, I realized that my people, they didn't know anything about money. And when I started teaching about money, I was starting really basic, and they were taking massive ahas. And I realized I'd been cheating my people by assuming that they knew a lot about money, but they didn't. So we had to start learning it. And I learned it for one reason, to learn how to better teach it, and two, to learn what I don't know. And here's a big aha about wealth building is Warren Buffett does what I called flip the triangle. And if you guys write anything down when it comes to wealth, you want to move from having income to having assets. Income is taxed at a normal rate. Assets grow and compound over time, and you only have tax consequences when you exercise the sale of the business, the stock, or the real estate. That's why Warren Buffett pays less taxes than me when he ran for office, and he's a billionaire. But because he doesn't take that much actual income out, he doesn't pay that much taxes. Since most of my income was in actual real estate commissions or profit from the businesses, 40% of every dollar goes away. And that 40% over time could have been a massive number if I would have understand how to protect that and how to grow it.
I love that. And one of the things in our giving class, and I'd see you on stage, that you had changed your goals from growing your wealth to making millionaires. And I remember asking you a couple years ago, like, how are you tracking that? And that discussion led to Wendy and I, we started a group. Every month we meet as our team, on our team, not just anybody, and we track our net worth together. We call it our Hot Millionaires Club. And we track our net worth, and it's created a lot of growth. Claire, what's the average growth that we had last year? So month over month, the people in our group, we have about 15 tracking it, they grew by 2 to 3% every month on average. So you add that up, and that's like a really nice percentage increase, and it just started. Most of them haven't invested yet. It's just the awareness. And then every month getting to have a conversation with people, and we're all learning together. So it's a real gift. So you can start your own community on your team with some friends, whatever you want to do. Call it millionaire. Wendy had millionaire mochas. We would do millionaire margaritas. Whatever you want to do, just get together, start talking about it, and build your knowledge. I saw a lot of heads nodding around the margaritas. Okay.
Yeah, I did make a net worth tracker that you guys can download for free, no lead gen, nothing like that. It's at winmakegive.com. You just click download, and it has a net worth tracker that I based on what Jay shared with me, and it has the real estate models that we talked about that you can play with and use for yourself or tweak it. You make it better, send it back to us.
Cool. Love it.
winmakegive.com.
winmakegive.com. There you go. So health, the energy to do what you want to do with who you want when you want. You seeing the pattern here? It's all about energy. And you need a lot of it if you're going to have a big life. And what you don't want is to look up one day and say, I'd love to go out and play with my kids, but I don't have the energy. You know, I worked so hard this week, I'm just going to lay on the couch on Sunday instead of doing something that's really fun and rewarding myself, right? So you have to manage this part of your life. It's actually more foundational than the wealth part. Number one, manage your energy. I think this was yours. How do you manage your energy, Jeff? Ben.
Do you know who you're talking to, sir?
I'm not sure at any given moment at this point.
One of my dear friends, Chris Suarez, sent me a study done by Harvard in 1990 or 1980, and it was called The Corporate Athlete. And the corporate athlete talked about how you need to manage your energy. And there's this myth that stress is a bad thing. And the example they gave was weightlifting. And when you lift weights, what happens is you actually have tears in your muscles. And if you allow those tears to rest, they actually not only heal, but they grow back stronger. And the lesson from that is that stress is actually the foundation for growth, because if you don't stress it, it doesn't grow back bigger and stronger. Now, the key to that is intermittent, rhythmic, continuous rest or breaks. And the study didn't talk about, hey, I'm going to go to Hawaii in December. It talked about every 90 minutes to take 5 to 15 minutes to do something to improve your physical energy, your mental energy, your ability, your emotional energy, right, and your spiritual energy. And you get to move up in this pyramid. A good example is if you go in the morning and you work out, you come in and you're kind of in a good mood. You're kind of all jacked up and you're feeling good, right? Which means if you had stuff going on in your life or you had a fight last night with somebody or whatever, now you're emotionally feeling pretty good. So then you sit down at your desk and you're feeling good. You got physical energy, right? And you have no emotional problems at the moment. You sit down and now you can focus. And when you focus, you get results. When you get results, you say, hey, I won the day, high five. Then you start thinking about, why am I doing this? And you get to focus on your spiritual or your purpose. But when you come in and you're feeling like crap, right? Or you're immediately more emotional. You don't eat, you're immediately more emotional. You don't sleep enough, you're immediately more emotional. You don't hydrate, all those things. Or let's say you're feeling physically okay, but you come in and you had this big fight last night, or you had this issue, or you're worried about your mother or your child or whatever that might be. Anybody ever gone to work, sat down, but you didn't do anything because your mind was somewhere else? You actually cannot focus, right? You don't move up from physical energy, emotional energy to mental energy to focus unless the bottom of the triangle is okay. So what I think about managing my energy is managing when I have highs and when I have lows. And I don't want to be just bouncing off the walls crazy high, and I don't want to be low. So what you do is you try to find the area where you have the highest productivity, and you try to maintain it. And there's all these different cues that happen in your life to know when you're crashing. And we crash every day, multiple times. Sometimes we crash for days or weeks or months, or sometimes we have just a crashing year. We need to be able to indicate when we're on the downside so we can do something to keep us within that range. And I call that managing our energy.
Cool. I think we're going to get there. There we go. I was going to say the number one way I would tell people to manage their energy, the number one health habit you can have is to manage your sleep. If you get enough sleep, there are so many benefits. When you are actually sleep deprived, the enzymes in your body that make you say, I'm hungry versus I'm sated, go to sleep. So you tend to eat more when you're poorly rested, right? You also don't want to exercise because your energy's not there. It's just all of these different benefits coming back to manage your sleep. So if there was one hack for managing your sleep, it's not about when you go to bed, it's about when you get up. If you make a commitment to start getting up every day at the same time, guess what will happen at night? You're going to go to bed. We get up every day around 5:10, and there's rare exceptions to that when things really extraordinary things, but we get up around 5:10, 5:30. It'll happen before the alarm clock goes. My kids trained me, right, when they were being bottle fed, and we just kept the training. But when you do that, I can go out. Like last night, we went to dinner, and we didn't get home till midnight. I was wiped out. Guess what? I can do that for one night. What am I going to do tonight? I'm going to bed early. So it doesn't mean you never get to go out late. It just means you don't get to do that and abuse your body day in and day out. And the idea that you sleep late on Saturday, it actually is kind of a negative cycle. So begin, if you want to manage your sleep, focus on when you get up, try to make that a habit, and everything else will take care of itself. Your goal here is 7 to 8 hours, and it will be magic for everything else.
I don't sleep. Keep going.
There we go. Manage your stress. Man, that's a really gruesome graphic for stress, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like it's an axe coming down on top of us. Yeah.
It reminds me of that scene in The Hangover when they kind of, shock those guys. There we go.
Right. So how do you manage your stress?
Managing stress, the number one thing we do is we have regular bouts where we get to sit, stop, and reflect, and we exercise. I actually think exercise after sleep is like an amazing way to get it out of your body, right? When you have a really tight muscle, like you ever get those knots in your shoulder, my trainer will give me like a dumbbell and say, go like this. And I'm like, that hurts, keep doing it. And you actually tense it up, and then when it relaxes, the whole thing will come out. And when you exercise, you're getting all those little stress knots, you're making them a little worse, but it actually moves the blood through, and your body can actually relax. So that, and actually pausing. Every morning, one of the things I do is I look at my goals. And I think that little bit of reflection, so I don't feel lost, I'm clear about where I am, that reduces a lot of my stress. What would you add to that?
My partner of mine, Matt Fedek, I hung out with him one day, and I said, well, what'd you do last night? And he said, for those of you guys who don't know Matt, he's a great instructor, and he owns market centers and region and top agent, and he's the mayor of his town, and he's a backup EMT. He said last night was the night that I had to be an EMT, a volunteer EMT, and I said, well, what happened? He's like, some kid jumped off the roof to kill himself. And I said, well, what happened? He said we got him to the hospital, but he died before we got there. And I thought, that would have shook me up quite a bit. And Matt said, you know what it did? It made me realize that there's no emergencies in real estate. That was a truly real emergency, right? And that comment really stuck with me. And what that's allowed me to do is when somebody steals from you, or somebody leaves your business, or somebody sues you, or whatever those things that happen, I just think at the end of the day, they're not going to be that big of a deal. And I ask yourself the question, if you guys want to go through this exercise, just say, write down the 5 worst things that happened to you last year. And then write down or cross out which one of those things actually matter today. And what you'll find is that the majority of the things that you wrote down where you thought your world was ending, all that really happened is you stole from your happiness, your productivity, your relationships, your health for some period of time, and it passed, like most all things. So you got to have that perspective. Then there's no emergencies. And our people will come in and say, you seem relatively calm to having somebody just stole from you. Yeah, I can make more money. You say, that person can quit. I'm going to miss them, but they are replaceable. We'll find somebody, right? And you just figure out, well, I can't change the past. What can I do next?
Yeah, that guy that cut you off in traffic last year, if that's still bothering you, you need help. But we'll let it ruin our morning, won't we? Right? So definitely, I love that. Great answer. It's really about the perspective you bring to it and understanding that it's just a small thing. It's a big deal. It's one of the journeys I've had with Gary is that if you're stressing yourself, like you were talking about like the muscles, if you're pushing yourself and you're trying to live within your abilities and the edge of them, you get better and better at this because you're going to bump into walls. You're going to have things that happen. People are going to steal from you if you're in the growth mode. And the more you're exposed to it, the more you realize, well, it's not going to kill me. Right? The first time it happens, it's okay to panic a little bit. But then you realize, okay, I'm okay, we're going to be okay, and you move through that a lot faster every single time. That's been my observation.
One of my partners called me like, one of my top agents just resigned. And I said, which was it? Who was it? I said, yeah, we already talked about that person. They weren't really doing the stuff they said they're going to do. And she said, I'm having a hard time thinking. I'm stressing about this. What's the team going to think? And I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about the ones that are still here. I want you to pay attention and think about what can we do to love and help and get the people that are still here in productivity, because the one that left, it's no longer relevant to us. Let's just move on. Let's think about who's still here with us today.
Love it. Manage your diet. Hey, food is medicine, folks. I've never seen anyone with more discipline than Gary, and we can all try to do that, but what you eat actually sets a huge precedent for how you'll feel. And I could go on and on and on about this, but be a little bit purposeful. It began with portion control for me, and then focusing a little bit. I've still got work to do, right? We all do, but focusing on what you put in your body matters a lot. And so, I don't know, I think it's really easy when you're running around servicing clients just to pull through that drive-through window because it's easy. It doesn't take that much on Sundays. That's what we tried to do. We learned from some friends just to maybe go to the grill out some chicken and prep some meals for the week, so at least you have an easy decision for at least the middle meal of the day, right? If you can take the decision away from yourself in the future, do it. Because if I'm stressed out, like I'm going to Chipotle, I'm getting a burrito, right? But if I have prepared for that, right, and I've already got a meal and it's set up, I'll probably eat what's in front of me. So if you can, get ahead of it and don't overcomplicate it. Just try to say, oh, great, I'm going to eat oatmeal for breakfast every day. I'll be boring. But you can eat something healthy just by making sure you have it and having it prepared in advance. It's when we don't prepare in advance that I think we make really bad choices.
Yeah, you wrote in the one thing, create a bunker.
Yeah.
This is not a weight thing for manage your diet. It's make sure that you have food to control your blood sugar, which controls your energy, so that you can be emotionally okay and mentally focused, so you can work on your big why, right? For me, you'll see in my office, there's hard-boiled eggs in my fridge. There's apples in my fridge. There's waters there. If you go into my car, there's protein bars, there's waters, there's cinnamon gum. All those things are there, so I try to minimize the amount of bad life choices that I make when it comes to cheeseburgers.
There you go. Manage your exercise. You just got a bike. Isn't it convenient that they got that?
Yeah, I did just buy a Peloton. Yeah, I like the lady that yells at me, like, pedal faster.
I do think it's in that order. If you only did one thing, I think you should manage your sleep, and then your stress, and then your diet, and at the end of the day, do that exercise. You will feel better, and it actually helps. They all work better together than alone. But I'd also tell you from the one thing, there's more people who've set health goals with the one thing than business goals. And if you just start small, don't say, I want to get six-pack abs. Good luck with that, right? If you're an advanced part of this group, sure, go for it. Just start, you know what, I'm going to be the person who does some kind of exercise every day. Maybe it's going to be 10,000 steps on that's pretty easy to get here. Become the kind of person who goes to the gym 5 times a week. Don't stress out about doing 100 push-ups or whatever that thing is. Become the person who gets on the Peloton every day. And then it'll take care of itself. Start small and build a habit that you can feel some momentum and success around. All right, business. You know a little bit about this. The ability to succeed through others so that you can do what you want, with who you want, when you want.
Remember, if your business requires you to show up, it's actually not a business, it's a job. If your business will grow, succeed, or at minimum maintain, whether you show up or not, then it's actually a business. Right? But we sometimes confuse this idea that we're self-employed in real estate with we have a business. It's just not true.
Nope. If you couldn't go on a 2-week vacation and the production keep going, you've got a job. You haven't got a business yet. So succeeding through others is the goal. It's the third L. Why are we starting with margin?
I think it's an interesting topic for today. Have you guys read the book Profit First? So think about this in your business. Take how much do you want to make? What do you want your margin to be? Let's do even numbers. Let's say that you had a real estate team and you were not personally in production. And you decided that you needed to have a 25% margin. 25%. Everybody with me?
Uh-huh.
Now you pay your agents based on the MRA book 50%. How much do you have left to pay for your expenses, your salaries, your lead gen, everything else? 25%. That's it. You should start with that number and work your way backwards. One of my friends owns a large software company in the faith-based world, and he says, I made my profit a line item on my budget. I made my profit a line item on my budget. So if you want to make $250,000 a year and you are going to do it through having a real estate team, you better make $1 million so you can pay your 50% split, right? And then you have to live all of your expenses under 250,000. And you see time after time, we put all that money in, we put all that money in, we put all that money in, we put all that money in because we're hoping that it's going to pay off. But then we wake up one day and the market shifted and it's all gone. And you start from scratch. I had a builder that owned $100 million in real estate, about 7 golf courses and 2,500 lots. He drives a taxi in my town today. Lost it all, everything. Because everything was about getting more. And as Jay said, money runs really fast and you never actually catch it, right? So find that margin, take it off the table, put it somewhere safe, and then grow your business with whatever's left.
So one way to look at that is 25 cents, if I just use your numbers, the maximum of my expenses in my business is going to be 25 cents on the dollars I've earned. And it can't exceed that. So it allows you to have some boundaries around what you will spend money on until things get bigger.
Yep. You get into real estate expansion and you expand a 10% margin, all it really does is it subtracts 1 or 2% in each location until you wake up with 10 locations and you're actually negative 10%. If you expand a profitable business, that's the margin you're going to get across all those. It's so important to expand a model that's actually profitable.
Yeah, we did, when I was at the private equity company, there was a local pizzeria that we were thinking about acquiring, and they did all fresh ingredients. And we looked at their unit economics, right? They would sell a pie for $10 that cost them $11 to make. And they kept saying, if we just build more of them, we'll make money. I was like, you're scaling something that loses you money. That's not going to work out. So what you said is true in every business. So have an MVBP. That's a part of a course. You can go find it if you go on KB Connect. It's mission, vision, values, beliefs, perspective. And that's a whole course in itself. If you don't know why you're in business, you probably won't reach your full potential, right? Are you here just because you want to make money or because you want to do something bigger? You heard Gary say it today. It's never about the money. The people who grow the biggest businesses, that do the most and have the most impact, are all doing it for something besides money. They have a mission statement. So I know that you have one. It takes a massive MVBP to do 18.75 million in GCI. Is that your number? Is that incredible or what? I'm in awe.
Well, it's not me. It's that I had 19 partners that average over $1 million in commission, right? You want to make $1 million, find a way to help 10 people make 100,000. You want to make 10 million, find a way to help 10 people make $1 million. And the number goes on and go on and on, right? We'll get to the point one day we'll say, I want to help 10 people make 10 million.
There you go.
Because that adds up to the number that you want. And the reason is that we often let ourselves down. And it's easy to let ourselves down. That's why we screw up relationships and we screw up our health and we screw up our finances. But most of us that have a good heart, we will not let other people down. So make your purpose and your vision and your mission about helping others. And the way I think about it is your mission is about helping your customers. It's an external statement. Your vision is an internal statement. It's about helping and retaining the people in your organization. And you make your life about those two things. How do I help my customers to the best level? And how do I keep my people by helping them?
And the gift of that, by focusing on helping other people, how many people got to hear Danny Blaine talk about, at the end of the day on Saturday, the loss that she sustained last year? That was pretty amazing, huh? The thing that she said that stuck with me is the thing that helped her most was starting to focus on other people. Because when you focus on other people, you stop focusing so much on how bad you're hurting. So by focusing on others, that has gifts on so many levels. It'll help you grow your business. You won't cheat because you don't want to let other people down. And it also helps alleviate the bad feelings you have about how you did things. Maybe you're depressed. If you focus on helping others, those things go away too.
One of the more impressive people that I've ever met in my life.
Danny?
Danny.
Yeah, unbelievable. And
Yeah.
they have a huge business, and she had to step right into the thick of it at arguably the hardest moment of her life. And
Yep.
she would not let her people down. Love that. Master CV. What CV?
Career visioning. Used to be called Recruit Select. It's about hiring, finding, and retaining talent. Now, talent is somebody that moves the business forward and adds no drama to your business. You know that you've hired the right person because your business increases and there's no drama, right? I call that a balance between love and results. Not only does somebody have to kick butt and win, I have to love them and like them. And if you don't, in either one of those categories, resentment's created. And resentment blows up businesses, relationships, marriages, all those sort of things. And to control resentment in business, you gotta have love, you gotta care about the people, right? And they gotta care about you, and they gotta get results, and you gotta provide results to them. And that's that goal of the CV process, is to go out there and find somebody that's gonna be consistent, that's gonna get results, and that you're gonna care about enough that you would invest in changing their life.
So it's career visioning. How many people have taken career visioning at least once? Awesome. It's really one of the most impactful classes that you can take. I've helped write 3 versions of this class, and I've probably been 20 times. And I'm going to keep going as long as we keep teaching it and creating the course, because every time I go, I get to discover something new about myself. And if you want to run a business, remember the definition of a business, the ability to succeed through others. If you can attract the right people, people that love and respect that balance, you're going to be able to grow a business. That's how you get out of that job and you let it be their opportunity. It's the #1 business skill that you can build that will raise your ceiling is the ability to attract and retain higher and higher levels of talent. #1 thing.
And to do that successfully, it takes time. I just said in a last class was, when you take one person through career visioning, you spend the entire time proving to yourself that that's the right hire. When you take 3 people, all of which you would hire today without thinking, right? You spend the entire CV process figuring out which one's the best person. So don't cheat yourself by not having 3 of the best candidates, all of which you would feel comfortable hiring today, and then going through the CV process. You can't take the class 10 or 20 times and between not go through the process with a bunch of people. It's just a waste of the class. So between, take people through it. Go through the interviews. Do it to your friends, your family, your current employees. Get used to the process, and then when you go back, you'll learn something new.
I love that. And we have a rule in our organization. Gary is on my defense panel. If I hire someone, he gets to say no. We never bring a candidate without there being at least 2 other candidates. It's just a rule. And I think back, the very first investor we worked with on a flip, I remember I was at Home Depot and we were trying to pick out like the entryway chandelier for the flip we were doing. And I started in the area where they're all out of the boxes and they're all lit up. And he goes, no, don't look there. I said, but look at those look really pretty. He goes, yeah, but you don't want to buy those. He goes, you go down here, they're still in the box, but we can look at the picture. And I'll be like, but can't they tell that this is not as good as that one? And he goes, no, they're not on a showroom floor. When they walk into the house, they see the lamp and either it works or it doesn't. Unless they're an interior design major or something, they have nothing to compare it to other than the space it's in. So when we're hiring people, we want to be in the aisle in Home Depot, not stepping into the house where we only see one. We want to see all of the selections so we can make the best selection. Does that make sense? All right. Have a lead generation floor. I know that we had a plan around this. I'm assuming that you have a standard and we won't do less than this. Is that what we agreed that the whole point was about?
Well, I think as Gary would say is you got to have a lead generation plan for customers and you got to have a lead generation plan for talent. And that is a job that happens every single day. The moment you stop looking for talent is the moment you wake up and you're missing somebody. The moment you stop looking for new customers, that's when you wake up 3 or 4 months later and you have no business. Right? It takes consistently looking for talent and filling those seats and consistently looking for leads to provide security and stability in your business. Every single day.
I remember what I meant by this now. All right, it's only been 2 days and a lot of stage time, so I apologize. The best teams that we interview around this, they don't just set a goal about how many calls they're going to make or whatever. There's a minimum standard, and they don't leave the office until they hit it. So if they said they were going to do X number of appointments, they don't leave until they hit it. They have a standard, and that's the floor. Anything they do above it is bonus. But if they hit that floor, they can also go home. Great, I did my job. Most of them, by the way, will stay and exceed that. They have it's kind of funny. It's kind of is it a minimum standard is really just your standard. Most people say they have a standard, and it's actually a suggestion, because if they don't hit it, they'll still go home. So this idea is you've got a floor. This is the minimum we will expect for ourselves and each other. How do we hold each other to that so that we can make sure that we hit the bar? All right, last one, self. Want to read that one?
To be the best version of you, no matter what you're doing, with whomever you're with, all the time.
I think a lot of us, the person we are at work doesn't always match the person that we are when we're alone on Saturday and there's no witnesses. I think pretty early on in the one thing, I remember saying, there should be a goal for all of us to be the same person in all the rooms of our life. That we love ourselves, faults and all, that we can be our authentic selves wherever we are. And the people we work with love us and appreciate it for us. And the people that are our friends love us and appreciate us for that. We're striving to be better, but we accept who we are, and we get to be that same person wherever we are. Putting on a mask to go to work, putting on a mask to go to Sunday school, putting on a mask, right, when you're with your relatives or whatever that is, that's not healthy behavior. I think being the best version of you all the time is the goal. And a lot of that's got to do with getting out of judgment, getting into acceptance and growth.
It's one of the things I respect most about people like Jay and Gary and Mo. They're the exact same way, whether you're at their house, off work, or at work, or in a meeting. They're just consistently the same person, right? Which is why I don't dress up for stage, because I would never dress up for work. I would never dress up for home. There's no reason for me to fake it and have Noah tie a tie for me or something. It's not going to work.
I remember asking you about that. It's like, you're going on the big stage. Why are you wearing your gear, right? You've got your REI jacket on, and you're going on the big stage. And you're like, well, this is what I would wear to go on a listing appointment. And I would pull up in a truck, not in a BMW, because that's who my customers are. This is who I am. This is who I serve. This is who I am. I remember that all the way back to like 2009, that one of those early conversations. So be who you are. I guess we kind of just hit that button. Stay hungry. Don't get satisfied. You jump in anytime. Play up.
You know, my very first mega camp, it was probably the best gift that my broker ever gave me. She said, you should go to mega camp. And I remember sitting out in the audience, and I was looking at those people, and I was thinking, I could do what they do. They're not smarter than me or work harder. Like, I can do what they do. And once you get to know them, you realize they're just like you. We're all exactly the same, right? Some of us have strengths in some areas, but it was simply getting around people and taking them off the pedestal allowed me to say, I could do that too, right? And if I would have stayed in Bellingham, Washington, I would have looked around and said the number one agent does 60 home sales, and I would have got to 62, and I'd be like, I'm killing it. But when I came here, I realized that 62 units was not killing it, right? And then you come here and you see these individuals, right? They're killing it, right? And it gives you that kind of that bigger perspective to play up.
I love that. When I got to work with Mia Hamm on her book, The Soccer Star, she was by far the best female athlete in her high school in San Antonio when she was growing up. She dominated the girls' teams. So what did she do? She knew that she aspired to be on the national team when she was a teenager. She started playing against the boys. And she went from being the very best to not being the fastest and certainly being the smallest and the weakest. And instead of winning every game, she was now losing every game. What did that do for her? It forced her to keep growing because she put herself in an environment where growth was a natural thing just to keep up. I was really lucky. I befriended 4 or 5 kids. Like, I was a very average student, and they were all on the honor roll. And just the fact that I hung out with them, I read a few less fantasy novels and studied a little bit more just because I didn't want to be embarrassed to be at the same table with them. Who you hang out with matters, so go ahead and choose to play up. You want to think big, start hanging out with people who think bigger than you. You want to grow your wealth? Start hanging out with people who want to grow your wealth. They don't want to get a new couch or a new pair of sunglasses or a new whatever every day. They want to actually build their wealth. Who you hang out with matters, and you might as well jump into the biggest pond you can get and be the smallest fish, because guess what? You will grow. You will grow when you do that.
Andy Taylor is a top agent. Him and his wife run a massive team in Washington. And he shared a podcast with me. Andy worked in the churches before. He was in real estate, from a guy named Andy Stanley. And Andy Stanley's a pastor, and he does a lot of leadership podcasts. But one of the best podcasts that I listened to was The Dangers of Autonomy. And the danger, it's worth a listen. It's 20 minutes. It'll help you. But it talks about how autonomy can go so wrong that it actually ends up with people justifying their actions till they go to prison. And what I thought about is, how do I get myself in a room where my people have the confidence, guts, and no fear, where they can object to me and say, that's stupid. You shouldn't do that. And I want to surround myself with people not only that I can learn from, but will tell me exactly how it is, which is why I love Wendy so much. She doesn't hold back any punches from me. And that's the relationship that I want.
Imagine what it's like to live with her.
What's that?
Imagine what it's like to live with her.
Right. But what you get from that, she's one of the few people in this room that could coach me. Because other people I could talk over. She wouldn't let that. She would just call me out on it and say, this is not going to happen. You're being an idiot. I told her I was going to work out. She said, what time? I'm like, at night. She's like, how's that going to work for you? Right?
True story. I was there.
Yeah, and that's how she is. But that's plain up.
So we got a couple more of these, and we might have time for a couple of questions. Live with clarity and by priority. This is basically the one thing. So we've already given you 17. We know that you're going to have 19 ideas. Get clear about which one matters most. Make it a priority, and then go live it. Take the smallest, whatever progress you can do on that area and start making an achievement. It's the one thing idea. We don't have to go through the whole class. Figure out your priority. You're not going to leave here and go implement 19 new strategies in your life. That is a guaranteed recipe for failure. But you can look at your notes later and say, of all of this stuff that Ben and Jay talked about, what would be the one thing that would be most impactful? And focus on that. It's a great skill and a great habit to build. That's actually how stuff gets done. Be grateful and reflect often. I got to say, this is something I discovered really recently. I tend to have my head always in tomorrow, and then yesterday and never today. I'm looking at what I can learn from yesterday, because I like that stuff. I'm kind of a geek, and I'm focused on where I'm going, and I pay the least amount of attention to where I am and what I've done. And so I can be nostalgic, and then I can be forward goal focused. So my coach challenged me to start my own newsletter. And every month I would have to write a note. And I've been doing it for about 18 months now to all of my friends, saying, this is what I've been up to. And that simple act of stopping, instead of always be charging for the next thing and saying, well, what actually happened this month? It's been amazing for me. And the idea that even if my rhythm is now only monthly, I know people who end their day journaling what was great about their day. I was just doing it on monthly. It really had a huge, massive impact on my perspective. We talked about the perspective you can get. Is this really a tragedy? You also can reflect back on what's happening. So I've now just dipped my toe in the water a little bit. I'm doing it monthly. I wasn't doing it all before. If I didn't see it as a memory on Facebook, or Wendy say, you remember last year when we did it? I wasn't really thinking about it and being grateful for it, but having the habit of having to look back and say, well, what actually happened? It actually is a wonderful thing to force you to reflect, especially for all you driven types out here, because if you're always charging ahead and never looking back, it's really hard to appreciate things as you go. That thing probably is a recipe for burnout.
I call it the high achiever's dilemma. What happens is we pick something. We pick something out in the distance. It's a mountain we're going to climb, right? We're going to get to 100 units, or we're going to build a team, or we're going to be number one, or we're going to make this, or we're going to do whatever, and we make all of our life about that. And then we make all of our people about that. And then we climb that mountain, we climb that mountain, and we claw, and we fight, we get to the top of that mountain, and we get there, and for 1 second, we're like, I made it. And then we look around, and we're like, shit, there's a bigger mountain. I need to get up that mountain. And then you go and you climb for another 5 years or 7 years or 10 years or whatever it is, and you get to the top of that mountain, and once again, you have that 1 second of enjoyment, And then it's always about getting to another place. And we have to be careful not making our life about the journey, right? It can't be about the destination. It has to be about the journey. And I think what Jay's saying really well is we got to find reasons for us and for our people to celebrate daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and reflect on it. Otherwise, you're always looking for a higher mountain, a bigger mountain, and you always have that such a short amount of joy, and none of that's worth it.
No, it can't just be about checking things off of your list, right? You got to sit there and savor it and make sure that you're appreciating that. That was actually really cool. That was an amazing experience, and appreciating it for what it is. So number 19 of 19, no negatives. What does that mean?
Well, you just don't allow it. If you want to be highly effective and highly productive, you eliminate loser slime from your life. You do not allow people that walk by you and they get that slime on you and it stinks real bad and it follows you for the rest of the day. Because then what happens is you bring that slime and that stink home and then you stink up your house, right? Your kitchen, your family, your kids, all that kind of stuff. You don't do that. So you just make a standard. Jolene will say, we can talk about whatever you want, but no stories. You don't need to hear the story about where the buyer went to elementary school. Just ask me the question. We have a sign in our office that says no drama. We time block drama. It's available from 5 to 6 p.m. Unfortunately, we leave at 4:59. If it's a drama thing, we're friends. I'm glad to talk to you about it, but come back later after work and we'll talk about it or give me a call. By then, it's not drama for them. They've gotten over it, right? But they were willing to come in and waste your day and waste your time and ruin you just because they feel like they have to take it out on somebody else. So we make a standard that we don't allow it.
Life's way too short to hang out with people that are going to suck your energy. Way too short. And going all the way back to the wealth, if you haven't put yourself in a position where you get to choose the people you hang out with, you've still got some work to do, right? You need to start choosing. You need to actively take a role in this and make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who think positively about what's happening in their life. It was probably like 10 years ago. I don't remember. We had a guy here. Remember the Tell Me Something Good guy?
Yeah.
I love that little lesson. Instead of asking people, how's your morning? How was your day? Because those negative people, that's their chance. He changed it. Just say, tell me something good. You work your scripts to bring out the good and focus on the bright spots instead of the one bad thing that happened that day.
Yeah, we're asking for it.
I know. We're asking for it when we do that. That's on us.
Yeah.
All right. We did ask for one bonus thing because we just couldn't talk about everything without saying this. Just one last admonition like we do always. Always give back. When we talked about making your business and your life about other people, if you're not setting goals around how you can encourage other people around you, how you can devote more time to charity, if you don't have any money to give, fine. You can give your time, you can give your leadership. You can just encourage people who are giving. There's real research that says if you go to someone who made a donation and say, I'm so proud of you, or that was so inspiring when you donated, guess what happens? They're incredibly more likely to donate more the next time. Just the simple act of encouragement from you can create a positive cycle. And at the end of the day, hopefully you're setting goals. We do, I know you do, around how much we can give and match.
No, I think for the last couple of years when we taught the Give a Million class, we said, well, how do we give? And Jay just came up with this list, actually. And he said, well, let's just start by giving compliments and giving recognition and giving thanks. And then if you don't have money to give, then another great thing you can give is your knowledge and your expertise. And I'll tell you, in many situations, if you have a marketing experience or sales or fundraising or leadership or whatever, nonprofits and organizations need that more than money. That'll move the needle more than anything. Number 3, give time. Go volunteer, do something, give money, give and get matched, which, instead of saying, hey, anybody in the room would give $1,000, we say, I'll match up to $1,000. Right? Don't just give that $1,000 away. Give your people the opportunity to feel good about giving by saying, I'll match whatever you give. And we've dramatically increased the amount of donations by simply doing that one thing. And then last, we believe the most amount of money you could give in the world is not actually the money you have yourself, but by teaching other people to give, inspiring other people to give a portion of that. And it came from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent of make $1 million, right? Think $1 million, make $1 million, net $1 million, and why are we doing this? To give $1 million.
That was actually, I'll give Ben the full credit. We were riding on a hunting trip, and I was talking about the fact that he had made the #1 donation to KW Cares, And he had set goals around it. And he goes, it would be really cool if above receive $1 million, we had give $1 million. What would it look like to grow a business so big that you could give away $1 million a year? And that started, our whole research team went crazy with that, because that lines up so much with this culture, with our leaders and everything in it. So kudos to you for that. Thank you guys for being here. I know we're running right short. I'll hang out. Can you hang out for a minute?
Yep.
We'll hang out and answer any questions you have. Thank you so much.